All right? There's a lot. And that's one of the reasons why I record the demonstrations. The other thing is that keep in mind that you're basically going to get taught the basics and taught how to use the tools. And I don't know everything that there is to do in Illustrator. I know a lot, but I have done stuff 2 or 3 years ago that I did once that I forgot how to do. So I am frequently Googling, how to do blah, 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 blah when I got to figure something else out. So don't be afraid that if you can't remember how to do something to either look it up in one of the tutorials that I'm posting or Google it, okay? There will be times you will ask me how to do something and I will go, I don't know. Give me a few minutes and I'll figure it out, okay? So keep that in mind. I don't know everything. You're not expected to know everything, all right? So the first thing I wanted to talk a little bit about today is a quick one, and then I got some other stuff. So the first is the Artboard tool. So we know that we can create new artboards, right? We can change this. We can go to inches. Well, if I start this out, now I've got one artboard. What if I want to add multiple artboards? Okay, you don't have to start a new document. There's a tool right over here, okay, called the Artboard tool. And when I click on it, pretty much does nothing right now except sort of dark grade the screen. Well, what I can do to start is I can actually draw other sized artboards. So what you could have is you could have an entire client's layout here, a poster, a banner, a business card, a letterhead, all of these things. We're going to talk about InDesign later, and InDesign is your layout program for multiple page documents. You can do single layout documents in Illustrator. So you could have an entire client's piece all put into one shot here, all right? You can also, with the Artboard tool, simply delete artboards. Or, just like anything else, you can copy and paste. So I can hold the Option key down, and I can drag my artboard. All right? And then I can also, with the Artboard tool selected, over here in my properties, I have my Artboard tool here, and I can just add an artboard. Or I could rotate it. All right? Or I can delete it. So the Artboard tool is really helpful when you find that you've done the document the wrong size, because I can take this, and I can size this down if I want to. Or I can change the size right up here. I could say, you know what, it was supposed to be 8.5 by 11, so let me change it. Okay? So that's the Artboard tool. The next tool I'm going to talk about is the Anchor Point tool, and I'm going to bring in an image to kind of describe that one, all right? So I'm going to drag and drop an image here. It's kind of gigantic, all right? And I'm going to add a new layer because I want to be able to draw, and then I'm going to take this image and just shrink it down. Okay? And so the Anchor Point tool is super helpful when it comes to curving your lines. All right? I could use the pen tool to draw this, right? I could sit here and probably helps if I'm on the right layer. And I could click here and here and then come back and even break my handle if I need to and mess around with where the handle goes. All right? Kind of pull it here and arc this and then come down here. And you guys get the idea. But that can be really frustrating and difficult at times, as I'm sure you guys have figured out. All right? So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to draw straight lines. So I'm going to click here to here, and I'm basically drawing straight lines to everywhere I think I'm going to be curving. All right? And I'm going to hit Escape, and I'm just going to turn this into just a stroke so we can see it. Okay? And I'll probably go to my stroke and make it a little heavier just for now. Okay, so now I have these straight lines. Great. Well, underneath my pen tool, way at the bottom here, is called the Anchor Point tool. And what that allows me to do is it actually allows me to go anywhere on the line and bend it. So I can go anywhere I want to and bend these lines. And you'll notice how much quicker and easier it is to do this. All right? So the Anchor Point tool immediately allows you to adjust those curves. All right? Now, the other thing you can do with these, as you get going, because I've noticed this on some of your work, you'll notice points like this. See this area right here? Not great, right? Our face doesn't usually do that. So you can come into any of these hard points. You can grab your direct selection tool, and you can actually click on this point. And here's my little circle, my little curve anchor. If I click on that and I drag, I can actually round that out. Same thing up here. There's a little bump. I don't like that. I click here. I click on this. You'll see it activates, and I can pull this and kind of round it out. So without really doing a ton of drawing itself, I can make my lines a little cleaner and don't have to worry about dealing with the pen tool. All right? So that's your Anchor Point tool. That is tucked underneath all the pen tools. It doesn't add anchors, it just allows you to shift them, which I find to be super helpful when it comes to drawing things, okay, especially those curves. Questions on the anchor point tool? Make sure we are paying attention. I know you guys got work to do, but this is going to help. All right? So now we're going to talk a little bit about the width tool and width profiles. So when I draw with the pencil, all right, I get this straight, boring line, right, which really doesn't have much character to it. Well, I can change the width profile. And what that means is if I go to my properties, under my stroke, okay, I have width profiles. And what this is going to do, here's my profile, is I can change the profile. So let me just put it on this one. All right? And you'll notice what it did. Let me make my stroke a little bit bigger. So now as I draw with my pencil, okay, oh, so here's another annoying thing that Illustrator does. It defaults to the default profile. So if I go back to my stroke, drop my profile down, okay, I can actually go into the appearance panel. All right? This is a trick one. So I go into my appearance panel, they kind of tuck this away, and right here I can uncheck New Art has basic appearance. So that changes that really annoying thing that it does when it just continuously goes back to the basic look. And if I uncheck this, get rid of this now, all right, go to my stroke, go to my, and I click here, when I draw with Illustrator, with the pencil tool, I'm going to get a much more interesting and more realistic line. Okay, so you can see how this sort of functions. So it really allows you to draw some really creative things. It also makes super simple things, you know, where I can adjust this. So now, if I go to my stroke, and I have all my profiles, you'll notice you get basic profiles, so I'll get this one. This kind of draws a little thick to thin, which again, if you're drawing with a pencil or a pen, the harder you press, the wider the line gets. And any of you that have used a tablet, or any type of drawing software, you'll notice some of those have those pressure points. When we use the iPads, it has a pressure system, where the harder you press, the bigger the line gets. So this gives you a more realistic line. You can also play with your own, all right? So if I go to my pencil tool, go to my stroke, you can also pull the profiles up in the window as well, and I'm just going to go to Uniform Basic, and I'm going to draw a line. All right, now, here's where the width tool comes in handy. It's right here. It's generally the default top tool. If you need to, it'll be under with all these other wacky tools that I barely ever use. But the width tool is super helpful. What this allows me to do is adjust the width of a line anywhere I want. So I could create a really weird line profile if I wanted to. All right? And when I have this set up, if I go to my stroke, go to my profiles, I can actually save it. Add to profile and just call it funky. Okay? And then when I draw with funky, this is what funky does. Now, why you'd want to do that, I don't know. But the width tool is super helpful because drawing in a plain pencil form, okay, just going back to my uniform line, really is very computer-like, right? It doesn't really have a lot of movement to it, feeling to it. It's just a straight pencil line. The other thing you can do with the width profiles or with the width tool is if I was illustrating this person, I could draw the eyebrow, right? And I could take the width tool, right? And I could mess around with just a simple illustration. And again, here's my width tool. You'll see the, come here. Where are you? Here we are. These points right here, I can drag these in, all right? And I can also, under my stroke, I can change my end cap where it could be round, which looks really weird. Like really weird, all right? And, you know, it really gives you the ability to kind of mess around pretty quickly with lines and create some really interesting stuff, all right? So that ability to kind of change the width of a line is really important, especially when you're illustrating and you're drawing and you're trying to get something. Even a lot of times, I will just change my profile if I'm just doing a simple illustration to the thick and thin. And as I'm illustrating, you know, going down here and working, you just get a much more interesting piece. Obviously not as thick with the line, okay? But it really creates a more realistic illustration. All right, and that's the nice part about changing width profiles. All right, so we've done anchor point tool, the width profiles. The last thing we'll go over today is your swatch panels. All right? Swatch panels are super important as you're starting to figure out. All right? They're here. When you start in Illustrator, you have all of these swatches. None of them you need. All right? I want to try to get you into the habit of deleting all the colors because I want you to only designate colors that you use, because when we talk about recoloring our artwork, which we'll talk about later, if you don't have colors designated, nothing happens. All right? So really all you want to do is click on the CMYK red and scroll all the way down. You hold the shift key and click on the last bright and just hit the delete key. It'll ask if you're sure you want to delete. Yes. You want to leave black and white. Does that make sense? All right. Now, any color you create. So right now, I go here. I just create a nice blue. And I want this blue. All I'm going to do is click on it. Sometimes I find you have to click and then hold and click. You'll mess around a little bit. And you can drag your swatch here. Why that's important is that when this is designated with a color, okay, let's say I pick a black. Anytime I pick this color, okay, and I apply this to this, if I change this color, right, because it's going to be global, I can actually adjust it, and it'll change all of the colors that are that, if they're designated as such. Okay? So swatches are kind of important. I'll start bugging you about that, not so much now, but when we start getting into our layout and some other things in Illustrator, we'll start talking about that. But that's the anchor point tool with profiles, the width tool, and swatches, okay? Just more tools to help you. Again, really try to mess around. That anchor point tool is really interesting for being able to, and yeah, you could come in here and smooth your pencil and try to draw it, but if you look at my hand, that's really difficult. And so that anchor point tool comes in really handy to be able to bend and move and arc things, okay? Not so much with the pencil tool, all right? And again, it hides under the pen tool. But all you would do is just click the areas where there's going to be a curve. All right, release, get that anchor point tool out, and just be able to kind of really bend and manipulate lines. And I find it super helpful when I just don't feel like dealing with the pen tool on something especially like a portrait, because there are so many curves to our faces. All right? So again, more tools to mess around with, more tools to look at, to kind of add to your digital toolbox, if you will, to help you with this project and projects going forward. All right?